Hey folks, hope you're all doing well and welcome back to the channel. So for episode 6 of my 25 favorite guitars, and again, this is not in any particular order, but my number 6 is Alex Lifeson. So let me talk a little bit about Alex, fellow Canadian. Um, the greatness of Alex Lifeson, I mean, well, let's just talk about this for a minute. The way he was able to kind of morph and evolve over the years in keeping with the soundscape that what Rush was creating at the time. So what do I mean by that? Well, early on, Rush was a guitar driven band. I mean, first album straight blues rock, guitar based. And then Neil Peart comes in and then they start getting into the proggy stuff. But again, very guitar driven. But then as the moving pictures and the 80s kind of moved in a little bit, then they started getting a little more keyboard heavy, and then it was Alex kind of had to morph a little bit there and had to really pick his spots and find places that he could kind of fit in that in that soundscape. And I mean, later on, in the 90s and 2000s, the guitar was, the keyboards kind of came down a little bit, and the guitars were able to evolve. um, and he was able to navigate all of that and still be very relevant to the band. It's funny when you say relevant to the band, because when people talk about Rush, Neil Peart, it's like, everybody goes on about Neil Peart, and I mean, justified, phenomenal drummer, great lyricist. Sadly he's passed away, but everybody goes on about Neil, and then they'll go on about Geddy, great bass player, vocalist, and so on. But it's funny, in any other band, Alex would be like the star, like the main guys, being the guitar player. But for whatever reason, in Rush, he's sort of like, the third man on the pole, which is really unfair, because Alex was so much a part of that sound and developed a style throughout the years. I mean, there's if you're a guitar player, you know about the Alex Lifeson chords, right? Um, he was always able to carve himself out a niche and, make, because again, it being a three piece, make his guitar sound really, really big, you know, by, his signature move, which was, playing the chords and, letting the high strings ring out, the high E and B string ring out, and kind of fill out that little bit of sound and make the band sound really, really whole and big. um, Alex is famous. He and Getty wrote the music, right? And he'll put the lyrics, right? That's not news to anyone. And I mean, the stuff that he comes up with, and Getty would always mention this, where he was like sort of one of these guys just spontaneously came up with riffs and things, and Getty's like, "Well, what did you just play there? Can you repeat that?" And he could never remember what he played, but he had this quality, this ability to just come up with just these fantastic parts that they would then go on to build songs around. Not some riffs, yes, but chordal passages and just musical ideas that they could expand on and just turn them into fantastic songs. So as a songwriter, Alex was the man. I mean, it was him and Getty writing all the music, and I don't have to tell you how great Rush is. I mean, phenomenal musicians, phenomenal music, right? And solo wise, Alex was never one of these really flashy guys. He wasn't a tapper. I mean, he did, sparingly, little bit of whammy bar, but he's an old school guy. For him, it was all about note selection and emotion. When he started off in the 70s, the first record, he had that real scrappy 70s quality, the kind of Jimmy Page thing, and then he just kept expanding and getting more, I guess, evolving and more technical, and not so much, but more note choice, and just being always sort of within the context of the song. Again, Alex is one of those guys that, when the solo came, you're always kind of looking forward to it. And he was always able to carve out a nice solo. And some of his solos are like, signature solos. I mean, off the top of my head, the Red Barchetta, of course, his showcase, La Villa Strangiato, and the other one I'm going to mention too that I think is really cool because it's one of Rush's sort of more straightforward songs, closer to the heart, where that solo that he plays on Closer to the Heart has always been one of my favorites too. And I mean, there's others, but he's just one of those guys that he's just able to, you know, mesh his way through there. And you know, if you've seen him on stage, and I've seen Rush twice, and he just looked like he was having a blast. I mean, he's up there and he's just having fun, and he's playing stuff that in if I live to be 100 years, playing guitar, I'll never be able to play the stuff he was playing. But he's just made it, like he's just having a blast and just playing it, just really, really getting a kick out of it. And I mean, how many guitar players you see up there, instead of trying to look cool, just smiling and having a good time. And that's basically Alex's vibe. So, I always, in every video I mention, what are the three things I love about Alex? Well, I just named the three. I just, went through them. But I'll, just to summarize, a hell of a songwriter. I mean, the stuff he was coming up with, especially, you got to give him credit with that keyboard heavy period that they went through. He was still able to carve out parts and complementary parts within there, different textures. I mean, he went through a lot of effects, different guitars, but he always found a lane, to sort of elevate the song. So, as a guitar player, within a song, either creating or finding parts within songs, just phenomenal. A solo player, as I mentioned, I mean, he's one of the best out there in terms of creating or finding the. I'll give you another example: The Garden, off of Clockwork Angels. I mean, that solo is just. I mean, that when that monster Les Paul tone comes in, it's just killer. But capturing the emotion of the song. I mean, I mentioned earlier, or Limelight. Sorry, I said Red Barchetta earlier. I meant Limelight, the Limelight solo. I mean that solo, just that first note, which is just an open B with a slight bent whammy. I mean, just capturing the sort of the vibe of that song. That Limelight solo. I apologize earlier. I said Red Barchetta. I meant Limelight. That solo is just spectacular, capturing the emotion of the song. And it's just watching him. I mean, there's a guy up there, man. He's just like, man, I want to be that guy. He's just having a great, great ass time, just up there playing guitar and just enjoying the hell out of it. So, he's one of those guys because he was part of us, I mean, not a super group, but a super group in terms of notoriety, musicianship, and everything else. Geddy and, Neil, he was always real. I always found him to be kind of the guy who got mentioned the least. But again, in any other band, that would have been the main guy. And for that reason, weirdly, he doesn't get maybe as much credit as he should because he was an absolute beast on the guitar. So there you go. So I'm going to include in the links. I've done a bunch of Rush shows on the channel. I'll put links to those shows below. So go check them out. If you like what you see, please hit the thumbs up and please consider subscribing. That'd be much appreciated. And this is Saturday. So have a good rest of your weekend and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.